Right, I think we'll get underway. Well, no doubt other people will join us as we go along with this call. So thank you for joining us. My name's Phil Jackman, and I want to talk to you today about another exciting initiative that we've got going on with working with TechVets. We've got a lot of initiatives underway, half a dozen or so, and if you're interested, please go on the cybernorth.biz website. There's lots of information about what we're doing, and so normally we give away free training, we've given away free accommodation, but this one's a little different in that we're giving away free money. Yeah, so that's a really unusual thing for us to do. So we'll just see how that goes. And of course, like all things, there is no such thing as a free lunch. There's some conditions that we need to apply to this. So we'll talk about those in a minute. Am I assuming that you can see the presentation? Colin, could you just say yes or no?
Yeah.
Excellent. That's good. Okay. So I'm going to have to nip in and out just to make sure that I can let people in as they come in, as I'm just doing that now. This is being recorded, by the way, so there's an opportunity for you to go back and revisit anything that we talk about. But this is the agenda of what we're going to talk about. The concept behind supporting ex-forces into cybersecurity, how we arrived at it, and what the basic outline is. Then we have two people from TechVets charity, Colin and Jenna. They're going to talk about the charity itself, and Jenna's going to talk about how the charity supports employees. And I've got a few slides on the application process, how the employment's going to work, and some of the conditions around it. They're not stringent. In fact, they're very light and hopefully very decent. And then there's an opportunity for question and answers, and please take this opportunity to get involved. The more questions they have at this stage, the more easy it is for us to proceed with the offer. Okay, so let's move on to the concept. Okay, so CyberNorth has been doing a lot of initiatives around trying to help people into employment within the cybersecurity sector. It's recognized that the cybersecurity sector has a international shortage of employees. I think there's something like 3.5 million global vacancies at the moment, something like 14,000 vacancies in the UK as we speak. So we've been thinking about a lot of initiatives to try and help people into the sector. For example, we're going to launch a shared apprentice scheme later on this year, around September, which helps young people or people changing careers to think about the kind of business that they would like to work in. But this one's specifically aimed at helping ex-forces people into employment. So that would be people who are unemployed or just about to be unemployed or underemployed, which is equally a bigger problem, I think, within the sector, though Colin and Jenna will put me straight on that in a minute. So Northeast has the highest number of unemployed ex-forces people of any English region. If you go up around the Alnwick area, you'll see there's a lot of places where forces people are still residing, still living, and that's just an example, I think, of the huge opportunity that we've got here to employ people into the sector. So TechVets, which I'm going to let Colin and Jenna talk about, provides a bridge for those veterans, service leavers, reservists and their families into information technology careers. Obviously, they have some very transportable skills which are useful for us in this market. Obviously, they have some things which they need to be worked on, and hence the idea behind this concept. So the idea is to bring underemployed and unemployed ex-forces people into cybersecurity positions across the region by providing free money, a year-long subsidy to employees. So we've got 5 slots of £7,500 to give away, so 5 positions to be employed, and at this stage there is absolutely no commitment for you to employ anybody. The only time that you would get to employ anybody is when you've interviewed them and decided that they are right for your business, and you get them to sign on the dotted line. So entering into the scheme at this stage implies no commitment other than your interest. So what I'm looking to do, though, in order to get the funding, is to get a number of MOUs from companies to say, look, I'm interested, and we'll go along with the process, but I can't see what the people are like and whether or not I've got a place for them within their role. Okay, so I hope that's absolutely clear. There's no commitment at this stage other than just to be interested, and if you are, then to go along with the process and get involved with recruitment. Recruitment will be through a competitive process, and I'll come back to that later on in the presentation. So I'm now going to introduce two people, Colin Grimes and Jenna Richardson, who are both work for the TechVets charity. I'll let Colin and Jenna introduce themselves and talk about what they do and how they support employees. So, Colin, is it you that you'd like to go first?
Yeah, go on then. So I'll go first. So I'll admit a bit of a vested interest in this to start with. So I live in the Northeast. I am ex-military. I served 24 years in the Royal Air Force, and there is a huge skills gap in the cyber world, and we think we've got a way of helping you to plug it. We've got broadly three cohorts of people. So we've got what we call early service leavers who leave within their first 4 years of joining, and that can be for a variety of reasons. Some of them get injured through basic training, don't even make it through, and they get very little support when they leave. You know, they're almost it's getting slightly better. They're almost just sort of turf back out on the street, go and compete with everybody else. Now there's a bit more support in place. We look at those being around the sort of 18 to 24 age bracket. And they're generally looking to have to do something else. Our next stage service leaver is probably leaving somewhere around about the 9, 12 years of service point. So, late 20s, early 30s. And they're looking for that next step in their career. Then we can go the full hog. You've got the sort of 40 and up who've served the full career. They've got the pension coming in. They're quite often looking for a career change and a different direction. And lots of those are very well suited to come into the tech world. They've got the soft skills from years of management and leadership. Some of them have worked in things like threat intelligence and risk management and all that kind of things, all of those transferable skills where we can then build the technical stuff on top of that. Some of them are coming from highly technical careers in the military. So if I just look at the ANIC area, for an example, where you've got RAF Bulmer, you've got very, very qualified engineers coming out who are working with Cisco-based networks now, and all of the stuff that works with that, where they're working with a sort of integrated networked computer system. There's some bonuses that you don't even know about employing ex-service people. So, from a business point of view, if you employ a service leaver into their first role after leaving the military, you do not pay employers national insurance contributions for the first year. So, as well as the £7,500 that Phil's going to give you, you're also going to save a fortune in NI contributions in that first year. So it's almost a no-brainer for you, because there's lots of things where you can reduce the risk. The benefit of a scheme like this is you can take a risk on recruiting talent because that person is a fit for your organization. And then we look at upskilling them. You're not necessarily employing them to be that person now, but look at where you want them to be in a year's time. Take the soft skills coming through the door. We can provide some upskilling training. And what I'll do is I'll provide Phil. Phil, did I send you that list already of the training we can provide?
I'm not sure, but I'll say yes, Colin. But if you can send me
If I
again, that'll be
haven't, I'll
most
send it
helpful.
to Phil and he can distribute it out. But we've got a range of training available that people can access for free, and get very discounted rates on exams at the end of it. I'm just doing a deal with CompTIA at the minute to get their education discounts. But we can provide all that training for free. I can provide CCNA training for free. I've got Splunk training. I've got Pega low code training. A vast range of stuff to pretty much fit everybody's business needs to get that person through the door. We can build in some barriers. We can say people coming to you must have qualification X, if that's what you need for them to come through the door. But ultimately, our aim, and Jen will talk more about how we can help you as employers attract the talent. Our aim is to get the right talent into you, but to get you the people you want. And if we can get the right people in front of you at a competitive interview, because this isn't, we can't give people special treatment. We'd get in all sorts of trouble if we do that. But we can help and we can support people to get in. We then have a wraparound care that we provide. So we've got a large online community, about 5,000 people in there at the minute. Lots of industry professionals in there who have been through this transition journey from the military that just want to help other people. We can do all sorts of work helping you get on the Defence Employer Recognition Scheme and working through the levels of that and all manner of things. I'm probably stealing Jenna's thunder a bit here. So I'll stop and I'll let Jenna come in unless anybody's got any quick questions before we move on.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. Just before Jenna comes in, I just would like to reiterate, this is not a question of us giving you people to employ. It's about you choosing people who fit your business. The money is there not to coerce you or to persuade you to employ people, but to reduce the risk that you've got. So you can use that money to invest in their training. You can use that money to just reduce the amount of cost it's going to be for that business, or you could use it for really whatever you like. It's less an inducement. It's more to just mitigate some of the risk that you have in taking people who've not necessarily been in this sector so far. Okay, if that's clear, then Jenna, do you like to?
Yeah, no worries, thank you. So yeah, as Colin was saying, we've got the 3 tiers to our wraparound support for TechVets. So he's mentioned the community and the training portfolio, which grows every week. Colin and our director James do an awful lot of work with various different training providers, and actually they've secured so much training for our community. It's really impressive. I think Colin plays that down a little bit because he's so modest, but he's done an absolute storming job on that. And like you say, he can share the list with Phil, so you can have a look at that. But my role really within the team is I'm employer partnerships manager. So what I do is it's a kind of 2 parts to the role really. So the first part is I work directly with employers like yourselves who are looking to get candidates from this community. I completely recognise, completely appreciate that unless you've been involved with the military in some way, it can seem like quite a closed off community, and some of our employers do find it difficult sometimes to word a job description in a way that someone from the military would be able to access the information within it. Terminology, acronyms, it can all be a little bit confusing sometimes for both sides. So that's something that I can work with employers to make sure that their job descriptions, their people specs, their adverts, all that kind of thing, it's landing in the right way with the community that we work with. So I can support with that. We also have a jobs board whereby employers that work with us, they're all employers who recognise the value of hiring great talent from this community. And with that in mind, have a quick call with me, and if you're interested in advertising the opportunities that you want to share with us, then we can pop that on the jobs board and ensure that the roles that you're advertising for this program are reaching the right people. So we can pop them on there, and also I can share them with our early service leaver team in particular that Colin mentioned earlier, and the veterans who would be most sort of suited to this kind of scheme. Sort of a bit more broadly, TechVets is a program within the Forces Employment Charity, for those of you who've heard of that charity. So just reiterating what was said earlier, we do support service leavers, so people who are either coming up to or within 2 years of having discharged from military service. Our veterans who have been out for longer than that. We have spouses and partners program for people who are married to or partners of somebody either serving or is a veteran. And we also have a young people's program supporting young people aged 16 to 24 from military families. So there's a program of support for everybody within the military community, and as TechVets we sit like over that because we support all of those groups in one way or another. So whilst we would focus on that sort of the groups that Colin mentioned earlier, you would have access to wider, slightly wider than that if that's your preference. And I think that's about it. The
important thing to mention is all of our services are free. So
yes.
as well as Phil potentially throwing some money at you, anybody that you take on who is in one of our supported groups can access our training portfolio for free. They can access the charity support for free, and all of those sort of things. The only just coming to my head there, possibly one good use of this money is we want to put somebody through some training, but actually we'll use this money to subsidize their certification. So CompTIA is a good example. So CompTIA Sci Plus, I think, is £249 plus the VAT. You could put this money towards the certificate. I'll provide the training for free. So there's lots of different things we can do there. There's lots of things we can do to handhold and support both you and potential candidates into your businesses.
Excellent. Thanks so much, then, Colin. So I'm just going to share my screen again, just so that let me just get this. Right, can you see that? Does that make sense? Anybody out there?
Yeah.
Right, that's great. Good, thanks. A bit of a satellite delay there, so thanks so much. Okay, so this is what's we're planning. Wouldn't take too much attention, pay too much attention to these timescales. I have to say that this program is supported by DSIT, Department of Science, Innovation and Technology. It's the end of their financial year. That's how we managed to squeeze some money out of them, and hence some of the tight timescales. But it's more important to get this right than to get it within the timescales. So what I'm looking for is for a number of employees to be signed up to the program with an MOU, and that is it. No commitment to employ anybody by the end of this month. Yeah. The aim is therefore to get 5 people start the process of being interviewed and recruited into pilot throughout April, if that's possible, and begin employment May to July or whenever that takes place. So throughout this process, we would like to keep in touch with the employees and employers because it's very much a pilot. We want to see if this works, and we'd like to make sure that we get your employers' opinions and the employees' opinions of how well the program has gone. We'll expect the participants, so that's the ex-forces people, to have some sort of periodic review on a monthly basis, and we'll have a final evaluation of the program sometime around October, November with DSIT themselves, just to see whether or not this is an effective way of getting people into employment. So the process is that Colin is going to, and Jenna will come up with a list of potential employees. If you've got some vacancies that you're interested in, we'll put those up as an offer for a competitive recruitment process. You as employees can interview one or more candidates depending upon your preference, depending upon the quality of the people that are coming forward and your own business position. You as employees can offer a role to nobody, one or more candidates, depending upon, again, the quality of people that come forward. And I keep reiterating, but I'll do so again, that there is no requirement for any employer to employ any individual at this stage. Yeah, you go through a competitive process. If at the end of that you find someone you'd like to employ, that's when the process begins. Yeah, and this employment can either be a permanent role, or you can put them through an apprenticeship, whichever is appropriate to you and the candidates. So there's always a little bit of a catch when you're giving free money. The only catch really around here is that the offer is for a minimum of 1 year. Hopefully the candidates will be good enough to go on to be long-term employees of you. So we'll give you £7,500 per employee. It's going to be paid after the first 3 months of employment. So if you employ somebody in July, the money will be made available to you in October. If it doesn't work out, there's going to be a pro rata clawback, which we apply to the employees not employed for the full year. So if you let them go after month 6, there'll be a 75% clawback. After month 9, there'll be a 50% clawback. And any time after that, there'll be no clawback. Yeah. So during the first year of employment, the employer will continue to support it through the TechVets charity, which Colin and Jenna have spoken about. And for us to be able to do this, we'd need reasonable access to the employee for support purposes, either by CyberNorth or by TechVets. So they can access the charity. We can access them to make sure that things are going all right. And because it's a DSIT supported program, there'll be some monitoring the program will be undertaken by it or its representatives. Excuse me. And participating businesses will be expected to be part of that review. Okay. So we've got the point now within the the presentation where it's open to the floor for questions. Excuse me. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask? But while you're thinking about them, I am going to, if you could just put them in the chat and we'll take them from there. Okay, the first question is from Rebecca. Is there a minimum starting salary?
That's a really good question, Rebecca. And I would say no. It's kind of down to your business. Obviously, I know salaries are lower in the Northeast. We get people who are willing to travel, for hybrid roles because the salaries are higher. I'd just say competitive, and leverage this funding in year one. Even better if you can leverage this funding and the losing the employer's NI contribution. It puts you in a stronger position to be able to offer possibly a slightly higher starting salary to get the right candidates. Yeah, it's a funny one. It's a really funny one. I would love to say, yeah, we want to start everybody at 45 grand, but it's got to work for your business.
Can I just come in there? So I think the absolute minimum is living wage. We wouldn't like to see any. We don't want to be a cheap employer, but I think this is a way of either you getting a candidate that you want to take a chance with, and this will mitigate some of the risk, or allows you to get perhaps a higher quality candidate at a lower price to get them into your business. But there's no minimum other than minimum living wage, and there's no maximum. It's entirely up to you as your business. So while we're just waiting for the next question, sorry, we've got, I think, one new one. Yes. So if we have a vacancy that isn't directly related to cyber, is this still accessible based on the tight time frames? I think I'm going to answer this one. If you are a cybersecurity company, then as far as I'm concerned, all roles are cyber related. So I think we can do that. That's going to be a bit of perhaps we need to be a bit more adventurous in terms of the ways of the candidates that we're looking for. But only around a third of the roles in cybersecurity management are actually technical. So, there's 2/3 of the roles which are not. So I think the answer to that question is yes, clearly depending upon the role. And if you're a cybersecurity company, then yeah, that'd be fine. Next question is, what does MOU stand for? Memorandum of Understanding. And that is, so it'd be a short letter that you will sign to say that you're interested in the program, but doesn't commit you to employing anybody at this stage. It's just, I think, a way of making sure DSIT are comfortable that they can give us the money. Yeah. So while we're waiting for another question, Colin, do you, without being too general and generalizing too much, are there skills and qualities that that ex-forces people have, and generic ones that they will bring to it? And then perhaps we could also ask the question, and Jenna may want to ask this: are there any areas that need to be worked on? So skills first.
So skills, I mean, you would definitely bring in teamwork, ability to settle quickly in new environments. I'll give you a personal example of that. I went to Afghanistan in 2011. I met the people I was spending the next 6 months with in the departure lounge at Bryce Norton. And you get in and get on with the job. You get people who want to do more. The general feeling amongst military people is they work till the job's done. We don't find many people who become slaves to the 9 to 5, because if work needs doing, it needs doing. You get that and it is that kind of can-do attitude that comes with them. We find that even more sometimes with military spouses, and Jenna's quite well equipped to deal with that. Military spouses quite often at the drop of a hat have to move because partner's job moves to the other end of the country. They have to give up work, adapt, find a new job whilst moving house and everything else that goes with that. Generally, if it's army spouses, while they're moving, the serving partner is away somewhere else in the world doing something interesting as well. So a lot gets left on the spouse and the family to deal with. So we find those people are more adaptable, and some of them they'll bring the hard skills in that you want, because some of them have got the technical skills, but it's probably more on those soft skills. You will get a person who is a good organizational fit, a really good team player, ready to hit the ground running, and a willingness to learn. Generally, service people, when we leave the military, we're quite grateful to have a job, and we'll work hard to keep it. What they don't have, and probably the gaps before, the biggest gap is business. Lots of us joined the military from school, college, or uni, so we don't necessarily have that commercial background unless somebody's been working in the contracts world in the military. There are some people, they're few and far between. That's the bit that's missing, and that's probably the bit as an employer where you can grow somebody into the person you want them to be. It's a really good way of employing mid-level talent, to those people that are coming out that have had that management and supervisory responsibility. If you have a cyber role that is perhaps less technical but slightly more managerial, there's definite shift there, and ways you can leverage the people coming out. You've got people who have been used to dealing with high pressure management, as I call it. There's management, and then there's management and leadership while somebody's shooting rockets at you and trying to kill you. And it makes a difference. You become very, very task focused very quickly. But getting people that can work under pressure, and proven working under pressure, then you don't need to put them under any artificial pressure to prove that they can work and do well. Jenna, have I missed anything there?
No, I think you've covered that really, really nicely, Colin. I think you've covered probably more than what I would have done. So
I don't know, Jenna, if you want to just talk about this, without being gender stereotypical, but this bit about wives and partners and the supportive nature of that. Can you just elaborate a bit more?
Of course I can. Yeah. So according to the FAMCAS report, which is a report that the armed forces do for the families every year, 9 out of 10 military spouses are female, which makes sense because the majority of serving personnel are male. But that gives you an insight into, with the idea of encouraging women into tech, it's a community that's really worth exploring. Like Colin said, it's a community that's very used to being mobile. I mean, my own story, I am military spouse. My husband's now a veteran, but my background's education. I was a secondary chemistry teacher for 8 years, and I found that wherever I went, I could get a job, but I couldn't develop my career because my career in teaching is basically you climb up the ladder based on time served. And when you're moving every 2 years, you don't get the time served. So like colleagues of mine who had stayed in one location were reaching, managerial, assistant headships, and I'm still at the bottom as a classroom teacher simply because I had to move every couple of years. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing because it's equipped me with those skills that Colin mentioned earlier, like, being versatile, flexible, adaptable, having the project management skills to, move my family, my house from one end of the country to the other while my husband's away, and dealing with the contractual obligations that come with the MOD and their suppliers of military housing, which is a whole different story. But as a result of that, military, the families are an incredible pool of talent in their own right. In a previous role, I worked specifically with spouses and partners, and I was, as a university graduate professional myself, blown away by the amount of qualifications that exist within that talent pool. I've worked with people, military spouses that are, top level legal professionals, barristers, that kind of thing, medics, doctors, people who are really, really qualified, but because of the military lifestyle, the gaps in potentially gaps in employment history, because maybe they've been posted overseas where legislation makes it near on impossible to work. To an employer, that can look like lots of different little roles and gaps. It can look like somebody's not really very tenacious, or there's a reason why they're jumping from job to job. And actually it's to do with having been a military family. So it's a community that is so rich in skills. Those soft skills that Colin mentioned are so abundant, but also those professional skills. A lot of our military spouses are doing cybersecurity courses. We've actually got a call with some of them next week. They've done cybersecurity courses, but they've asked the question, what's next? What do we do at that point? So, we've got a lot of our spouses that are taking cybersecurity qualifications with TechVets. So yeah, it's a really rich community that has got an awful lot to offer, but sadly often it's a bit overlooked. So it's great to be able to promote them here.
Okay, so Jen, I presume that once they are ex-forces, then that moving around is not an issue anymore.
Yeah, not so much. No, so once you're sort of ex-forces veteran spouse, you're not moving around so much, but that doesn't negate the fact that your employment history is still going to potentially have lots of gaps in it, lots of different roles. So you're still going to be affected by that, but not so much by that mobility, because by the time someone's spent 22 years moving every 2 years, the whole family's ready to put down some roots and stay in one location.
Excellent. Okay. The next question was, when will the first cohort of CVs land? We'd like to get this out as soon as possible. So we'd like to get it this side of Easter, which is very early this year. And because of the timescales I mentioned before, we'd really like to get this process going. So we'll see how we'll work with Colin and Jenna immediately after this to get it sorted.
What I'll say on that, Paul.
The next question.
Sorry, Phil. I'll just jump in that. Lots of people will send out a speculative CV, and we would be happy to just distribute those to you. In fact, if you're a Crest member company, you probably get some of ours anyway. You just don't know it. We're in the Crest CV distribution service. That's not running for us at the moment, but mainly the person at the Crest end has taken a month-long sabbatical. She's back at the end of this month, so we can start seeing CVs again. Matt, so to jump at the question about training, probably the easiest thing to do now, I'm just going to share. Oh, can you allow me to share, Phil?
Well, I don't know. I'll think about it, Colin, and make co-host.
It's Zoom. It does things in a weird way, doesn't it? Compared to
I'm just
remembering that it does things in a weird way.
Whenever I see people signing in, then I'm just happy that it's working. Yeah.
So that's kind of our training portfolio at the minute. So we're sort of running everything from very basic digital skills stuff, up to some quite complicated gear. We've got the Fortinet qualifications up to their new qualifications, and I'm trying to remember the name of what they call it, Fortinet Certified System Professional or something like that in one of their specialisms. We can do CCNA, CCNP. We can do more bespoke stuff with programming. We've got access to some programming training. We've got access to Pega low code. So if HMRC are big users of that. So there's lots of stuff available. You could put a program together to fit your business need. If you wanted somebody to come in, I suppose one of the usual routes would be looking at something like CCNA, Sci Plus, and then moving on from there. So there's all sorts we can do there, and we can work with you, and we can either tell you whether we have that available, or if we don't have it available, where we could recommend that you get it from, but also how you could potentially leverage some funding that military veteran might have as well to access training. Let me stop sharing. And where have my buttons gone? You might have to take back control, Phil, and stop sharing. Zoom did this with me yesterday when I was on something.
Yeah, I'll just have to work out how I take back control. I think I will have to say that these days. I'm not right. Withdraw co-host permission. There you go. You've been demoted, Colin. Yeah.
So the second part of the question about corporate culture and skills and training. So we also have access to mentoring. So we've got corporate mentors across the country who will mentor our clients purely in the TechVets community. We've got a number, we call them volunteers. We used to have chapter leaders in regions of the UK. They are generally now more senior people working in industry that have been out for a while that offer that hand holding. And you're right, it is that transition. It's the knowing what you can come into work and say on day one compared to what you might have said to your mates the day before. So yeah, there's lots and lots of work around there, and lots of hand holding we can do. And equally, if you were having an issue with somebody, we could step in there and offer some guidance would be the best way of putting it. But yeah, if we need to tell somebody to stop being an idiot, we've provided this opportunity for you. Don't mess it up.
Colin, I'm off mute. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Rather than go and chat, I think you're exactly right. I think where I was going was maybe not necessarily the idiot route, but I just think, just from a little bit of experience that I've had previously, is that, I think in terms of my attitude towards this, I think in terms of TechVets, ex-vets, amazing people. I think you're absolutely right. I think they tick some boxes in a skill set that we seem to be losing, unfortunately, certainly in the younger generations. But that's probably a call for another day. So for me, that's a huge tick, and I'm really interested in this. The bit, I suppose, where I was going, and I think you've answered the question really, as opposed to anything else, but just to add some more comments and some observations on previous experiences. We do a lot of GRC work, a lot of governance compliance work, and we talk to senior leadership teams, and quite often we'll talk to the board members. There's a way of positioning yourself in those situations when you're talking about risk, for example. And sometimes, when you've got guys who are obviously doing ISO 27001 qualifications that are in the military, it's very different talking about how they handled a piece of kit that was stuck out in a remote area somewhere in Camp Bastion. I know it's really stereotypical, so apologies. That's the first thing that came to mind in terms of actually talking about business risk around 27001 control. So it's more about just getting to a point and being able to adapt people's positioning, the way they come across, and the whole empathy piece as well. So it's very much about understanding that corporate culture. So that's why I was interested in understanding what support we would get as an employer to bridge that gap, because all the technical training that you've just shown there is fantastic. It's really good, and that's great. But I'm more interested in that soft, because you're talking about soft skills and human skills, and you're right, these guys do have them, but then there's a real integral part in that transition in terms of developing those soft skills as well to get them to the point to where they need to when they're reflecting my business. So if we've got that support, then that's brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely something we can have a conversation about. How we want to do it. You could insist, for example, that somebody coming into you is on our mentoring program, in which we would tee them up with a corporate mentor, kind of not necessarily in the field that you want them to work in, but I'm trying to think your example there. You wouldn't necessarily put somebody with a technical mentor, but you might put them with somebody that's working in the corporate world.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got mentors, from the big four accountancy firms, for example. So we would get them with somebody like that.
Yeah.
And manage that and help you. We want to help you because we want these people to be successful. Yeah. And if they're successful, that helps your bottom line.
Yeah, of course it does.
Which Agreed. Is where we're all, that's what we're all trying to do.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, the same for everybody else. Everybody's situation is different. And even if you look at some of the nuances with technical people in cyber anyway, some people are not actually necessarily the right people to be put in front of certain other people. But it's just about making sure that we get it right, and we've got this. Because I'm thinking this is all great, but resource is one thing anyway. And if we do bring these people into, if we do recruit your guys, then I'd just like to have some assurance that we will get additional support to manage that.
So can I come in here? Because I think that the few things I just want to say. First of all, there is no ideal candidate, is there? Everybody that you employ, it comes with some degree of risk. And so I would say I'm more with the soft skills myself and have no technical ability whatsoever. So it just depends upon the role. The second thing, though, this is very much a collaboration, Matt. And so we're not going to say, here's somebody, right, you're on your own now. It's about the TechVets, CyberNorth, the employers working together to make sure this is a success. Because if it's a success, we'll go back to DSIT and say, let's do it again. And we might even roll out this nationally to find a way of getting them to get more people into the sector. And I think, so, but in essence, you've hit the nail on the head. So the money that we're putting forward is really to help ease some of these issues and make it a more palatable transition from the forces environment to a more commercial environment. Yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell. Yeah.
Okay, I'll shut up now. Thanks very much, guys.
No. These are very valid questions, and but we don't have any more at the moment. I don't know if anybody else has anything that they wish to ask.
I would say to come back to Paul's question about CVs. My take on this would be, if you put in your memorandum of understanding, maybe start identifying a role that you would want to advertise for, and we can get job descriptions out. Once we've got job descriptions out to people, we'll then start seeing the people wanting to come into those roles. And if you've got one role and I can send you 5 people, that's really what you want, isn't it? And then you can your recruitment process is going to help you pick out the best person, and possibly hire 2 or 3 more. We've had a really strange hit with a company who have taken somebody on into a completely different job to the job they applied for, on the grounds that they're going to train them to do the job that they want to do in a year's time. So there's all sorts of weirdness goes in, because sometimes it's about the candidate. Our best success story at the minute is, if you know Eliza May Austin at that security company, she threw us not even a job description. She threw us a rough idea at 10 o'clock one morning. She'd employed somebody by 3 o'clock that afternoon, off the back of a phone call, and it was cultural fit and the willingness to be trained that got that person a job. They were in the Northeast as well. But yeah, yes, we can work quickly and at scale to deliver what.
Okay, so from this, I think it'd be a good idea if I just I'm going to write out to all the people who've attended and those who registered but were unable to attend, along with the deck for this and the recording of this video, so that they have an opportunity. So that's one of the questions that's just been asked. Will the deck be emailed? Yes, is the answer. I'll come back to in a second about who's the best people to contact in terms of next steps. But I think you're absolutely right. Whether it's look, I've got an inkling that this is the kind of person that I might want, or the kind of position I wish to fill, to a full-blown job description is fine. And I'll include that in the mail that's going forward. Okay, so I think I shall share my screen one last time, just to make sure that we can finish this off. Yeah, so next step, expressions of interest, MOUs, and recruitment process. So I'll drop you a note, probably Monday now, because I need to process the video and that kind of thing. Just explain the process and invite you to sign up on the MOU. Reiterate again that at this stage, the MOU commits you to nothing other than being part of the process, a continued interest in this process. Okay. If you want more information about the program, go to cybernorth.biz programs and initiatives. Just follow that link through, which I'll send to you again. And you can either contact one of the 3 of us, me in terms of CyberNorth, but Colin and Jenna in terms of TechVets, but or just include all 3 of us. But it's probably the best thing to do. Yeah. So I think that is, in summary, is everything that we need to talk about now, unless there are any final questions. No, I don't think so. we'll call that a day. Hopefully that's been of interest. Hopefully you're still sufficiently interested to get involved in terms of a memorandum of understanding. I could do with 5 companies to be signed up just so I can get this money out of DSIT. That's great. Well, I look forward to dealing with you in the future. So can I just reiterate once again, this is a collaboration. There's no commitment at this stage. We're not forcing employees upon you. It's an opportunity to take people and to fill roles that these people can do. And the money is not an incentive or inducement. It's to mitigate the risk of the transition phase of taking on those employees. Okay. I thought there was lots of questions, but there's people just saying thank you. So that's really helpful. Thank you very much. Okay, great. I shall call it a day, and I shall send this out next week. Thank you very much, then. Bye-bye.